Kia ora everybody, I'm Evan Kiljoy and I'm going to show you this great new plugin called Subquake. So it's not a subharmonic synthesizer in terms of accentuating what's already there. It literally is creating fresh, new sub for you to work with. So, and I've got this beat. But I wanted to kind of make it a little bit special. So I thought I'll use Subquake to add a little bit more interest to the kick and the snare. So what I'm doing with the kick is this. So have a listen. You can hear. This is the input kind of analyzer in a way, what's coming into the plugin. This is the noise channel, this is the first tone channel, and this is the second tone channel. You can have all three of these running at once, and they will react to what's happening on the input channel. And down here, we've got the output channel. So with the input channel, I'll just flick it into listen mode so you can hear. You can hear how it's grabbing the snare there as well. But I'm going to filter this back down to 200 Hertz. So it's just grabbing that. Now this is just the trigger analysis or the kind of input analysis part. So I'll switch it off. I'll isolate just the noise for now and I'll turn down the dry signal. You can hear it's a bandpass between 100 Hertz and 230 roughly with a 36 dB per octave filter. And sculpt it how you want. You can have it just sub like that if you want. You could put it into stereo as well if you wanted, multi-channel noise mode or mono. We just want mono for this. Now, along with that, I also have a tone generator. You can hear here it's kind of doing a like an 808 style kind of kick drum tone. There's also a pitch envelope here, so I can you add that pitch bend, and it's how like an analog drum machine creates that kind of punchy 808 style kick drum tone. All right, so we'll put the noise back in. This isn't necessarily exactly what you'd use Subquake for all the time. It's less subby and more kind of like upper bass kind of noise. But I thought it was a nice addition to this kind of kick drum sound. So now the other thing we've got before I set this back is to show you the envelope. So there are two modes you can have the output envelope in. You can either have it in one-shot envelope mode, which I've got it in now, which is really good for drums and repeated things that you want to have react exactly the same. Or there's an envelope follower mode, which in this case sounds very similar, but it reacts less to the trigger response of the input and more to following how the input is shaped after the gate. Now here we have the actual envelope itself that we can sculpt. We've right now got the release set to about a second, but I can shorten this right up. It gets really short, almost to the point where it's not long enough to let sub through, but it has that impulse kind of response, which you can actually use sometimes to like add to a drum. You know, if you just want to have that impulse bang, not necessarily subtone, but just that spike of energy. But we'll set this back to about 1 second. You've also got an attack and a hold. There's also a limiter, which brings the level up. There is a drive control, which smashes stuff if you want to have like more upper harmonics to your noise that you're adding. There's also a tremolo, which can add some really, really cool effects. So this is what I wanted to add to this kick drum of this loop, just to give it more interest. Now I thought the snare was a little bit kind of left behind. There we go. So again, we've got a bandpass noise. We're not using the tone generators in this case. So if I was to pull the dry signal out of this, this is what you're hearing being added to the snare. Just to add some interest to an otherwise kind of bland break. That's without the subquakes. Kind of adds a little bit of like an 80s gated reverb, but like a really downsampled gated reverb kind of feel. And if you wanted to, you could add like a massive compressor after this and go for a really like orbital sounding kind of dance music thing if you wanted to. Now, so this is the kick drum. And I thought we could have a little bit more on that. Ooh. So this is like a trance bomb creator. So a trance bomb, it's a kick drum effect that you use like in a breakdown of a tune, which has that big kind of open cavernous rumble. So one hit and it just blooms out forever. Right, and this is a breakbeat and a kick and a snare supporting that breakbeat. And I'll show you what I've got going on here. Let's focus on the snare. So as you can hear, it's quite a thin snare. It's got a really nice upper quality to it that works for that slappy, hissy kind of carry part, but it didn't have enough of the low that I wanted. Subquake is now adding that low fundamental of the drum. Let's have a listen and a look. Some bandpass noise from about 175 up, but I'm adding this tone. And again, you can see I'm using the pitch envelope so that it feels like it's like a skin that's being hit and it's got that dropping pitch, which is what a drum skin can do. When I put them together, kind of adding a little bit of this noise. Again, I've got it in the one-shot envelope mode. If I put this on envelope follow, you'll hear something. See how it's following what's in the input section far more. See, there's a yellow spike here, which is basically the trigger analysis and what's happening with the pitch here. If I flick this back to one shot, it's reacting more to just the trigger response than the actual what's coming out of the gate. I could shorten it up where we get more of the impulse, but none of the notes. Yeah, it sounds about right there. So once again, I'll show you with and without. That's without. So we're taking that snare drum and we're triggering noise and we're triggering a tone so that it can give you the sound of the bottom of the snare drum. This sounds like a high-pass snare drum that's like missing the bottom end. And there it is. Let's put that back with the kick drum. Now, I'll show you with all of the plugins switched off. So that's what we had without any of the processing. Which is fine, I guess. But that feels a bit better. Now let's move on to this breakbeat. So this is a classic 70s breakbeat that's been cut up, but even though we've got a big kick drum, which is doing its thing on the kick channel, it might be nice to get a little bit more body out of this break. So I did this. Very subtle, but it's just bringing that bottom end of the break forward. So without, if you listen to this kind of subby area, just that oomph. So again, let's go and see what it's doing. So I've got some noise and a tone again. So the noise is just doing this. Once again, I've got it bandpassed between 70 hertz and 123 hertz. And And I'm using this in non-retrigger mode. So if I was to flick this to phase reset, it's giving me the same noise every time, but I actually like, for the breakbeat, the slight differences that you get because it's a live sounding breakbeat, and we've already got a kick, which is doing most of the work of the bottom end there, which is punctuating and giving us that really rigid, repeatable kind of sound. I thought, it feels better actually having this not resetting the phase. I'm using a little bit of hold on this, a 9 millisecond hold on the envelope. I turn the dry back up and you can... So I'll switch it out. And it loses. It's like, again, it's like a high pass filter. It's been slid up on the brake. Yeah, so now it's got this tight little punch in the sub around that low. Once again, using the Fruity Blood Overdrive to bring some color into it. So I'll add that back to the other drums. All right, let's see what else we've got in this. Without Subquake, it's just a pitched down banging of some kind of metallic thing. But you add this to it, you've got a deep drum and bass style banging kick bass. So again, let's pull the dry out. That's nice. That is nice. That's centered around 49 hertz, which I think is in fact, we can switch this into note mode. It will tell us it's a G. So you could use this in note mode and you could actually pitch this around to, you wanted an F. There we go, there's an F. Go up to an A. We want to go to G1. Now, if we listen to just the dry, it's kind of an interesting kind of banging sound. But now we get that note. So this is an interesting one. I've taken another classic breakbeat, the action break, and rather than do something kind of normal with this, I thought I'd do something really different to try and push Subquake to do some really different stuff. So what I've done, I'm automating them so that they are sliding up. You can see here as well, this is only, I've got this in envelope follow mode, so it's actually going to follow the all of this audio. Even though I've got a little bit of a gate going on, I've got the trigger only triggering on some of the kick drums. So that's going to add the punch to some of those notes, which you will hear. I've got them with two different pitch bends as well, so they're going to do some weird kind of phasey stuff slightly. Yeah, I like that. The noise channel here, just adding a little bit of... I'm using the output filters here to kind of carve out. So there's not too much below 50. There's not too much above 315. I'm using the both the drive and the tremolo on this. So without the... You can hear there, it's more square wavy kind of sounding. This is adding some of those harmonics, so it's bringing back a little bit more of those kind of, I think it's the odd order harmonics, which are going to make it a little bit more sawtoothy as well. I'm also using the tremolo. So have a listen to this. The tremolo on is just adding a nice kind of wobble to it all. A little kind of wonky donkey funk. And again, I've got like a 400 millisecond release here. Which is working for this. So we've got it in a little bit of a track here. I'm just going to set up a loop over this section here, but play it from the top. It sounds like this.